When I was a kid, Saturday morning cartoons were in a decline. Between other channels offering cartoons all the time and animation being expensive, it wasn't exactly sensible for major networks to give up airspace for cartoons. The big ones I remember watching as a kid were Kids WB, which became the CW for Kids, and Fox Kids, which became the Fox Box, and later 4Kids TV. 4Kids took over everything, I guess. In the later days of these blocks, newer animated shows were replaced with reruns of Cartoon Network shows, or more likely whole blocks of kids anime. Digimon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Pokemon, Cardcaptors, Death Note, it all took over. There were too many of these shows which I just had a passing familiarity with. The most notable being Medabots.
Medabots!
Medabots was something I only sort of knew about. I had friends who owned the toys, but I'm not sure if I ever saw the show. But its iconography is so familiar to me, I must have at some point.
I knew you could take the robots apart and put them back together, but besides that, I really don't know a lot about Medabots. I knew about Medabi, but besides that, I don't know. So let's dive into a series that I'm sort of familiar with. Kind of. Maybe.
Medabots began as a Japanese game series, originally titled Medarot. The series is about a popular consumer line of robots called Medarots. The Medarots are mechanical skeletons built around an ancient piece of metal called a medal. Soon, meta battles became a popular way to interact with these robots, having them fight each other, and a whole new industry was born out of that. Each Medabot is built out of 6 parts. The medal, which is the brain, a skeleton, a head, 2 arms, a torso, and legs. The cool things about Medabots are the parts of the robots being interchangeable. After you win a meta battle, you take one of your opponent's Medabot parts, and all of them have different stats and abilities, and you can interchange the parts on your Medabot to make it the best there is. It kind of reminds me of Emerald from Sonic Battle, which was a robot that could be programmed to have different kinds of attacks and abilities of other characters. Also, it just looks like a Medabot. That's way too big to be a coincidence. The Medabots games are all produced by Natsume, who also produced Harvest Moon. Each main game in the series is numbered, going from Medarot all the way to Medarot 9. If you look at the original games, it really looks like Pokemon. You battle Medabots and collect Medabot parts, all while trying to defeat an evil criminal gang, the Robo Gang. Every main entry in the Medabots line is split between 2 versions. You either have the Medabi version or the Rakusho version, who are 2 of the original Medabots. The Pokemon influence is super hard to ignore here, but that's okay. Pokemon is cool, and so is Medabots, but Medabots is also weird, but weird is not exclusive to being good or bad, it's just weird. While the Medarot franchise has been long-lasting in Japan, its attempt to come stateside only really lasted as long as the anime did. So let's take a quick look at the Medabots anime, US edition. The US version of Medabots aired from 2001 to 2004. Fox Kids originally aired the show, but Fox Kids became the Fox Box in 2002, which exclusively aired 4Kids content. The show moved to ABC Family, and later Disney moved it to Toon Disney's Jetix block.
Watching the anime has been one of the best surprises about making this video. It's this genuinely cute and charming series.
The main character is Icky, who's been saving up to buy a Medabot for years, but everyone else at school already has one. Icky eventually buys a cheaper, older model Medabot named Medabi and uses a medal which he found in a river. Medabi ends up being the super strong Medabot, but he's not as obedient as the others and also has more of a personality. The interaction between Medabi and Icky is pretty great. Icky is this irritable, little cocky kid, and Medabi is this difficult, headstrong robot who's ready to fight at all times. I think one of the appeals of the show is the fact that fighting Medabots isn't really the focus. It's almost like an animated sitcom about school-aged children who just happen to be really competitive about fighting robots. There's a whole charming side cast of characters too, like Icky's friend, who's a school journalist, the principal, who can't get anyone to play Medabots with him, and school bullies, who are just this classic version of school bullies. It's genuinely pretty funny at times. In the first episode, we find out Medabi is this super strong Medabot, and this gang who Medabi has just defeated bring in their boss to help them beat Medabi. The boss is this huge, intimidating figure, and we get this sense there's going to be this epic fight between the 2 Medabots. Medabi fires his cannon once, and the villain is defeated just like that. It's super anticlimactic, but the way it builds up, it ends up being this hilarious hilarious punchline when Medabi wins. There's also this one episode where a gym teacher, Coach Mountain, who just hates Medabots, is punishing the main group of kids by forcing them to run laps. Coach Mountain is just this over-the-top character with his super dedication to physical fitness. I couldn't help but to love him.
Now you're gonna come with me and water the schoolyard with your sweat.
And then there's the heart and soul of the whole show, Mr. Referee. Mr. Referee shows up for every Medabot fight, no matter how far away he may seem, no matter how far away the battle is, he just shows up no matter how absurd it would be for him to be this close by. I love him so much. He lives for announcing the winner. He lives for making sure punk kids are making a mockery out of the sport of meta battling. He's just great.
I could definitely see myself returning to the anime to make another separate video. I've genuinely enjoyed it that much. It's just super cute.
Now, for some reason, what I remember most about the Medabots were the toys. I think it's because my friend had them and I always thought they were broken, but you're supposed to mix and match the parts. Now, here's the irony. This package was bent inside the shipping envelope. It smelled like cigarette smoke and has intense sun damage. But the eBay seller wrote, "Handle with care." So I guess that's nice. There were tons of these figures, giving players the opportunity to mix and match however they wanted. I've also read that people really enjoy the Medabots model kits, and I kind of wish I got one for this video, but as far as toys go, my priority is right here. The Medabots trading card game, because everything had a trading card game. The game was produced by Upper Deck, who's known for producing Derek Jeter. First things first, this cardstock is horrible. I feel like this is the kind of cardstock they use to print baseball cards, but you have to use better stock for card games because they're supposed to be handled a lot more. My business cards with my Instagram handle are printed better than this. Then my business cards with my Instagram handle. The objective of the game is to metal battle your opponent in order to drain their HP down to 0. Each player starts with 20 HP, but before their first turn, they choose a master card, which adds an additional HP correction. Each player places 3 Medabots face down on their side of the field. During the action segment of the game, each player takes turns taking actions with their Medabots in order from fastest to slowest characters. Ability to attack depends on the style of the attack and the distance from the enemy card. A Medabot is destroyed once an attack equal to or greater than its armor kills it. When a Medabot is killed, it goes to the discard pile, and then the health value of the card is deducted from the player's total health. There are also meta fighter cards which have special abilities but also cost health points. From what I can tell, this game was not popular at all. There was only one expansion set, which means it didn't sell too well, and online reviews from around the time it came out are less than enthusiastic. I bought this to play with my kid. I'm sorry I did. Wow. Still, it's interesting that it exists. Because what didn't have a f***ing card game? Medabots has had dozens of games, but only 3 were released in the United States. A remake of Medabots 2, which is the only core game to be released stateside, Medabots Infinity for the Nintendo GameCube, and Medabots AX for the Game Boy Advance. AX is the only game I was able to track down. It's like a fighting game, which uses a lot of the same building concepts as the core series does, but it's not really representative of Medabots, it's just a kind of different thing. When looking back on Medabots, it's not too hard to see why it didn't do so well stateside. I feel like the series didn't allow its individual parts to exist separately from one another. It doesn't feel like the show is based on the video games, it feels like everything else was promotional material to support the show. And that's unfortunate because the show made itself hard to track down. No one really wanted the show. The English dub was licensed by US networks from a Canadian production company. It could be replaced by any program, which means that network had no problem tossing it around. And I could imagine that made it hard for young fans to keep up with it. There's still familiarity with this property. Just as anecdotal evidence, it's my most requested video. I'm surprised there was never an attempt to revisit it stateside. The closest thing there has been to a proper return to the series was a Wii U Virtual Console re-release of Medabots Medabi back in 2015. But the dozens of games which have come out since Medabots ended its US run have just been ignored. At this point, it may be slightly too late. The last core game to be released in the Medabots series was in 2015. In 2017, Medabots Classic was released for the 3DS, but that was just a collection of the first 5 games, meaning the last new Medabots game came out in 2016. Certainly, it's taking it in a different direction. See, Medaby here, he's great and all, but he's just not appealing for that 12 to 14 crowd. He's not sexy enough. Medarot Girl Mission was an action Medabots game which featured anime girl meta fighters whose costumes would break or tear under certain circumstances. Okay, if this was a final breath for the series, it was going to make certain it was going to die in a loud, obnoxious way.
And while I was recording this video, a new mobile Medabots game was announced. So it's not totally dead, but the shift from mobile and the hiatus from the last main game in the series shows that it probably isn't doing too well. Who knows, maybe one day they'll do a soft reboot of the series and try to localize in North America, and then I will definitely want to check it out, but until then, I'm gonna pretend like Medabots Girls Mission never existed. Special thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Go to squarespace.com/Billiam and use code Billiam to get 10% off of your first purchase. A few weeks ago, I started designing my very first Squarespace site, and I've genuinely had a fun time interacting with their templates and user interface. And finally, after a few weeks of work, my first website, HIPSTERtrash.co, is finally up and ready to be viewed. Squarespace is an all-in-one platform that can help you get started on designing your own website, and it's great for everyone. You don't need to have prior coding knowledge or have to install updates or plugins. All you need to get started on designing your website is their user interface and one of their gorgeous preset templates. HIPSTERtrash.co is my one-stop shop homepage. If anybody wants to find out where I am on the internet, I want them to go here. Everything I post is going to be on this website. I was able to import every single video that I've made this year with a unique thumbnail using their blog setup. And I was even able to set up a gorgeous merch page with unique thumbnails for every single product and even associated galleries hosted right underneath the product page. Whether it's a portfolio, online retail, or a blog, Squarespace is the best and easiest option for anybody looking to design a website. The next step for me is to create a blog. On this channel, I talk a lot about general overviews of franchises and media things, so I would like the opportunity to sort of maybe look at one specific item of any of the things that I have already talked about, and I think hosting a blog through Squarespace is the best way to expand what I already do on this channel. So thank you again to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Remember to go out to squarespace.com/Billiam and use code Billiam to get 10% off of your first purchase. Thank you again to Squarespace. Thank you for watching this video. If this is your first video of mine, please consider subscribing as well as following me on social media. YouTube is always changing the way you're able to see creators' videos that you're subscribed to, so following me on Instagram or Twitter is definitely a surefire way that you can see the content that I'm putting out. Other than that, have a great day. I will see you next week.